In this video I'm gonna show, I guess, just a few random things that I've been working on. Just gonna jump between them. Nothing too specific, I guess. So I guess the first thing I wanted to show, since I've moved over to Blender, I did have to bring some of my original stuff into Blender and I guess kind of redo some work, but get it going inside of Blender. So of course that's the Ninja rig. So this is already completely rigged and ready for animation. And yeah, so I just wanted to sort of show that working. So this thing is actually cloth inside the engine, so that doesn't really do much. So you can see stuff like this happening. It doesn't actually break the thing, it's just kind of like it doesn't update correctly, so that it updates. If I undo, like if I right click and I undo the movement, it kind of keeps some of the I guess the constraints or something. It's like it doesn't update that, but anyway, yeah, so that's the Ninja re-rigged, ready for some more animations, I guess. I also had to do it to the mummy character. So my mummy characters are actually all done from the same skeleton. I just sort of rescale them inside the engine, so they're all done at this scale and this using this exact skeleton and everything. And then I'll for the bigger ones, you know, like this one is kind of the average one, or this one's actually slightly bigger than average scale compared to a human. The other normal mummies are kind of average scale. This one's slightly bigger, and then the one with the axe, the really big one, is obviously much bigger, but they all originate from this. So I only need to re-rig this guy and then I can animate the other guys as well using this guy. Yeah, so you see this one doesn't do that weird thing, and I think it's because I'm using external controls. Like when I did the Ninja, I actually used a skeleton. So you can see this is actually a bone, but it's displayed as a dummy sphere, or a sphere helper, or whatever you call it. So that's actually a skeleton, and I'm sort of manipulating the skeleton directly. And when I did the so I did this one long, like, you know, before, when I was still sort of messing around with how do I actually want to do rigs in Blender. So this is actually completely made up of a skeleton, and then the mummy one is actually, I have actual control objects, which I think that's what makes the difference in. So I think my preferred way, it's a little bit more work, but I think my preferred way is just like this with the control objects, just like I used to do it in Max. It's just a little bit more work in Blender because of how you need to align things. The alignment takes sort of more work, if you can call it that. You have to kind of switch views. I've shown it in a previous video where you kind of have to switch views, switch it to view mode, view it orthographic, align the bone to the view, and then align the object to the view. I mean, align the view to the bone, and then align the control object to the view. So it's, instead of just having an alignment tool where you say align this thing to this bone, Blender doesn't have that. You can align one object to another object, but bones are like sub-objects, and you can't align to them at all in any way. Don't know if there's some hidden away secret way of doing it, but yeah. anyway, so that's why it's a little bit more work, but I think it's still my preferred way of doing rigs, is having these separate control objects that's not part of anything else. I just like that. So yeah, so I've done that, and then I've also been working on a new enemy. It's basically a mini boss. So let me show the. So this is the original mummy sculpture that a friend of mine did for me many years ago when I started this project in the UDK. He did this one, and then he also did a version with the soldier with the helmet and the armor and stuff, which was based on this one, just with added armor and stuff like that. And then I did one where I modified and added some more armor and different stuff for for what I call the general, the guy with the axe. But I use this as the base for the mini boss. So the mini boss is also going to be a mummy. It's just going to be slightly more weird mummy, because it's actually my rendered to texture. So this is essentially the low poly, which is just set it up as a cage sort of. So what I do is when I do render to texture, I will do a displacement away from the character, because I've noticed that sometimes if the mesh kind of intersects with things, it'll render the normal map weirdly. Sometimes it'll render the ambient occlusion weirdly, so I kind of just displace it away. And I've got 3 displacements, so I can do, like, you can see the hand is completely different because you have issues between the fingers, and so just create some vertex groups and then do some different displacement amounts and then render to texture, and then this mesh doesn't touch the high poly mesh anyway. So so this was also sculpted in Blender. And you can see if that's even seeable, the not the I use the dynamic resolution. So just as I sculpt, I'll just kind of dynamically add resolution. What this does though is it completely destroys the topology and stuff, but anyway, it's not really required. And you can see this is sort of like, especially these bandages and stuff, it's a little bit of a mess. I used like inflate and some stuff to actually get that, like anything like this, get the bandage to kind of pull over the thing, is just like I just sculpted it all together, just pulled out the mesh, and but yeah, you can see it's a little bit of a mess, but ultimately when the character's done, it works just fine, and it's not very detailed. You can see that it's actually a very rough sculpt and very low detail, but yeah, it doesn't really matter when it works in the final thing, right? I mean, the character's like this size on screen, and there's going to be texture, so this is kind of the textured version, very simple, just sort of cube mapped on some various textures, and then let me just see if it'll render this correctly or not. So you can see I use in the material I use the what Blender calls the pointiness. So you get your object reference, and then there's a thing that they call pointiness. It'll kind of allow you to get the raised areas and shade them differently. So do that. So very simple, and then I have the ambient occlusion and of course the normal map, and that finishes off the look for this thing. So the low poly It's actually fairly low poly. Let's go to the rig. I think this is almost about as low poly as all the main characters, even though he's much bigger. It's not really needed to be much higher than this. You can see it's like even close up, and these are, I think, 1024 maps, and even though you'll never see it this close, still holds up pretty decent. So you'll see it around there, right? I'm just going to this thing and switch off the wireframe. So it's kind of the... so in this one, I wanted to do, like in the other mummies, there probably isn't a huge amount of contrast between the rags and the skin. I also got rid of a bunch of the rags on the other mummies, so this one has more, and I wanted to do a nice contrast, so I did like very pale skin and then much dirtier rags and stuff. And I also have, if I have it in this, yeah, I do have it in this one. I've just hidden it. Let's see if I go to face. So you can see these guys are gonna be loose hanging. What would you call bandages? That's what you would call it. These are gonna be loose hanging bandages, and so they're not actually rigged or anything. They're just skinned to a single bone there, and then I'll show this in the engine. And I hide them on the rig like this because I don't want to see them when I animate, because they are, you know, they don't impact anything. They're just kind of visual little things in the final game version of the thing. So pretty simple, you know. I keep things extremely simple. I mean, see the faces, there's 2,400 for this guy. I think it's even less than the Ninja, to be honest. I'm not sure. Even the Ninja is pretty low. I think my highest creature model is the rock creature, or highest enemy model is the rock. I guess I call them rock monster, not rock creature. So let's go to the rig for this one. 2,800 verts, 2,600. In the engine it might show different numbers. But yeah, he's probably one of the highest poly because of all the sticking out things. See if I have him. No, I've got him sort of mapped. I don't think I've even done a final texture for this thing. I think this is the current texture that's in the game as well. It's basically grey with normal map and ambient occlusion. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to show in Blender. Oh, one more thing that I wanted to show in Blender was some other stuff that I've been working on, just some level stuff. I'll just show this. So this is kind of a... So I exported this part of the level, and so that I can build, I think it's that, yep, so that I can build some stuff that's going to be animated. So the idea is that I have these doors. Now it's actually not going to exactly line up in the game. The level was never designed for this. This is an addition that I did recently, and so the layout doesn't exactly work, but you'll never notice because you'll see the doors on their own, and then you'll see this on its own, and it's close enough. You know, how you get there is a far enough offset so that you don't actually realize that you're not directly underneath the door. But the idea is that the doors, these sort of gates that I have, let me just see if I yeah, so so this is sort of what the gates look like, and in the castle you'll have like some switches that you use to open the gates, and the idea is that this gate underneath, or this gate is gonna be stuck. So one switch is supposed to open both of these gates, and this gate will open, but this one won't, and you'll just kind of see it trying to open. It'll just kind of sort of bounce like that, trying to open. And the idea is that this gate's mechanism underneath is broken, and you have to come and not fix it, but break it even further so that the gate will open. So the idea is that there's these counterweights, and so this one, just to kind of save on like making a complex mechanism, what I like to do a lot is just hide things, where it's like you have to use your imagination, right? So this chain does have a counterweight, but it's underneath, and then there's this other counterweight. So the idea is it simply rocks back and forth, and it uses this sort of gear system to push it back and forth, to like pull down this counterweight while this one comes up, and then the other way around for closing the door. And so it's all essentially bullshit, but it's a game. And so you come underneath and you'll see this gear, and this is actually the normal gear, but this is the gear that actually causes the problem, right? So it's going to be broken. It's going to have these 3 teeth, and every time one of those teeth catches the system, it'll kind of rock it back and forth. And so what you have to do is kind of break this counterweight, so the door will just open by this counterweight then falling, instead of being held into place in place. And so that's a whole setup there with skeletal mesh. So basically cut the chain. It's a rigid body system. The weight falls down, the chain breaks and swings around, all that kind of stuff. It's like a a very complicated way of getting to a very simple solution, for opening the gate. But it's a cool little thing that I wanted to add for this section of the level, just to give you something to do, because the castle area, so the external area that I've shown the most, I can't remember if I've ever even shown the castle area, but the castle area has basically these gates, and you have to go and push the switches. It's not a lot. It's like you have to push like 2 or 3 switches to get the final gate to open. But this is sort of the extra thing that I always wanted to make the one switch not work, but I never knew what I wanted to do. And so now when I finally got there, this is what I came up with, which is basically the door opening mechanism is underneath. So this is the top part, and then you run around and you come in underneath, and this will be where you have to fix the door. Come around the stairs or whatever. Now, obviously that's supposed to be kind of a hidden, not hidden specifically, but I'm showing a lot of stuff in my videos that you probably wouldn't want to see if you want to play the game blind, like not knowing what's going on. But anyway, so I just wanted to show this in Blender. So this is how I kind of get to this point. So I'll figure out the stuff there, model it and make it. So this is the iPoly stuff, render to texture. So you'll see my sort of, if you can call it design, my design style is extremely simple, and just kind of just something to show something, just so you understand that there's something there. And then this is, so I'll just make duplicates and then set them up for export. So these are the stuff that I export, and This one is the skeletal mesh. So it's got this skeleton inside there. I added a bone for every single chain, so I can have a clean chain for animation, for the way it sort of drops to the ground and animates, and this one swings around, so it's very accurate. Actually, only the first bunch of bones actually doesn't animate. That doesn't have any rigid bodies on them. It's only from about here somewhere. There's some rigid bodies there. The chain gets cut there, and then the bottom piece, or around there somewhere, it gets cut, and then the bottom piece, when the ball drops to the ground, it'll kind of do that. So okay, so I actually have that part open currently. So this is the area. This is sort of the switch. This also isn't finished, or is it finished texturing? I don't even know. It is finished texturing. Okay. You can see, I have this very sort of simple design style because I want to be able to make things quickly. So keep things fairly blocky and simple. But it all works together ultimately, I think. So this basically this switch is a blueprint, and I'm not gonna have any use buttons or anything like that. So for the switches, it's simply approach the switch, and whether I'll ultimately animate the guy actually grabbing the switch and pulling it, I don't know. But currently it's just, you just see it like doing the animation. And so the setup is, I'll take a quick look at the blueprint. Actually, that's not the real blueprint. I think actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop this video right here, and then I'll show the engine stuff in the next video. So this video doesn't become too long. So I'll stop this video here, and yeah, we'll go on the next one. And yeah, I want to say, like, if you see anything, like I always mention at the end of my videos, maybe I should mention it in the beginning of my videos, but anyway, if you see anything in the video that you would like to know more information about, just leave me a comment and I'll be happy to make more detailed videos. Usually my videos are kind of overviews of what I've done. I very rarely show how I do things. I kind of show what I've done after it's done. Maybe at some point I'll try and remember to record when I'm doing something. The problem is I actually iterate a lot. I'll make a lot of mistakes, and I don't like editing videos, so I don't like to record everything I do and then editing it down to like 5 minutes. I just record it and that's it. But anyway, yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching if you got this far, and in the next video I'll show the engine stuff. Cool.